had COVID-19, our economy was already on its belly, suffering from hyperinflation, lack of productivity, food insecurity caused by drought and bad policy framework, policy inconsistency across the board, unprecedented corruption, a dearth of leadership. That means there is no leadership across the board. We have lost good, quality, solid, visionary, competent leadership. After the storm, we need to make a turn, but that turn has to assist us to deal with the stronghold of our time, the stronghold of Zimbabwe. 40 years later, look at where we are, a country living in squalor. There is a stronghold that has held us together like this. We've gone for 40 years. We've done everything we have done over the past 40 years. Look at where we are. The nations have tried to help us. We have tried to help ourselves. Look at where we are. There is definitely a stronghold in our nation that needs to be delivered. Post this perfect storm, we need to deal with something bigger. We have to leave this mountain of strongholds and move to God's promises. This nation has strongholds that it needs to deal with. Let's not waste time, the coming storm, and just get on the other side and then come back and business is as usual. Saints, it must never be business as usual after this storm. Never. We must never again go back to where we were. As you're locked down there, you cannot go back to the same person that you were before you checked in and before you went through the storm. As we go into this storm, I want to encourage you to go through a transformation, a change, a complete transformation of everything around you. And I'm speaking this into our nation too, that Zimbabwe cannot continue on this squalor behavior. We must make the turn so that generations to come will say, look, it is in that year, the 40th year, when we were struck with coronavirus, we made a turn. We handled our legion. Our forefathers and our forebears could not handle it anymore, so they made the turn. Have not been well with me is the happenings of last week when 3 ladies were taken up, abducted, and were abused physically, and they were abused sexually. They were left for dead. I can't stomach that. Any of those girls would have been my daughters, because why would we have such? Why do we continue to have that? We have enough a situation with COVID, a bad economic environment, bad leadership, and a deteriorating social environment. And then we put on top of that this behavior. But let me tell you, in some way I wasn't shocked, because we have evil men presiding over an evil system, and whose main purpose is to maim, to brutalize, to corrupt for their own selfish gains, and to hold on to resources and to power so that they only benefit with their kith and kin. This is not the Zimbabwe we want. This is not the Zimbabwe God wants. We need to have a better Zimbabwe. My only problem is educated men and women out there remaining in silence and not coming out with all their voices up to voice against such an abominable act, such an abusive and brutal act.
It was so fast. It was the worst days of my life.
When wicked men rule, the people groan. We have evil men who man the system of the occult that is evil, that is brutal, that is corrupt. My real desire is for healing for those 3 ladies. May God heal you. But we apologize that we have not stood enough and against the system of evil men who feed from the occult. God bless you. Disadvantaged people in communities. I'm saying this is an end, and I want to apologize for having done that for all these years. So I'm standing up again and say I am no longer afraid of death, not even the fear of death. No one must ever come to me and threaten me with death, because Paul says to die is gain, but to live is Christ. And this is the mantle I will hold now. Now, I want to encourage us as we face our current system, which is brutal, which is evil, that we should rise up, particularly the nobles, those who are wealthy, those who are blessed with much, to rise up and liberate ourselves and speak out against this evil system. We are no longer afraid. Zimbabwe has been independent for 40 years, but we have gone through 40 years of trials, of testing, of probation, of chastisement under very unpleasant circumstances, brutality, evil, corruption. We have gone through quite a lot in 40 years. But when I say that God's time, when it is up, there is a God clock out there. And God's clock for Zimbabwe has now clocked that o'clock for 40 years. 40 years is up. Zimbabwe, wake up. Zimbabweans, wake up for your own emancipation, for your own liberty, for your own freedom, because God's time has come. And we cannot stop that. Brace up for change because it has come. Because God's time has come. Never embrace expedience at the expense of posterity. This is what has happened over the past 40 years in our country, as Zimbabwe. We came at a certain turn, and then we kind of made it so convenient, expedient, and we missed posterity. We came to another turn, and then we took another turn because it was convenient, it was expedient, we missed posterity. But God was chastising us. God was testing us. God was trying us so that we be purified as we get to the next season after 40 years. For example, the turn we took in 2017 was a plan B. It was not God's order. But God's time was not up as well. So there's a balance there. We need to know that we took a wrong turn. We went for expedience and we didn't go for posterity. November 2017, whatever the result that came about there was that we went for expedience and we didn't go for posterity. But God's time was not yet up as well. Now, it's 40 years later, we need to be alert that we mustn't go for expedience, but we must go for posterity. As we go through this birthing moment.
Munoziva kuti ndinofarira nyaya dzehealth neutano hwavanhu. Ndafara zvikuru nokuti kunze kumahospitals vanhu vari kurwara ende kusina attendance.